Hello and welcome to Thought for the Week. I wonder if we can see Jesus clearly, the risen Lord, whom we celebrate obviously in this Easter season. I'm not sure that we can, of course, but you might think, well, people in the Bible knew what he looked like. So many people saw him after his resurrection. But there's a tradition within the Bible, and especially in John's Gospel, of people not always seeing Jesus for who he was. So we need to take heart. For example, near the very start of John, one of Jesus' first followers, Nathanael, is seen into by Jesus deeply, and he realizes what a mysterious man this Jesus is. Jesus says, "I know you because I saw you under the fig tree," as if he'd seen into Nathanael in some way. And then later in the Gospel, in John chapter 9, a man born blind is healed by Jesus, but this happens on the Sabbath, and the Pharisees are very concerned to question closely the man and say, well, who did this, and why did they do it on the Sabbath? And this man's very plucky. He stands up to them and says, all I know is this man called Jesus came and made some clay and rubbed it in my eyes, and I can see. And they think he's being impertinent because he says to them, why do you want to be one of his followers? And they cast him out of the synagogue for his impertinence. But Jesus catches up with him, and they have a brief conversation, and Jesus asks him in the end, do you believe on the Son of God? And the man replied, who is he, Lord, that I might believe on him? And he's just received his sight from him, actually. And then we come to Easter. And Mary, of course, in John's Gospel, mistakes Jesus for the gardener when she stood weeping outside the tomb. And Thomas, of course, didn't see the risen Lord with the other disciples the first time they saw him, and so says, I won't believe until I can see him. Jesus reveals himself to Thomas a second time to all the disciples, with Thomas there this time, and he realizes, Thomas, that this indeed is the Lord, and he says, my Lord and my God. And Jesus says to him words which are of a great solace to ourselves. Have you believed because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have come to believe. And then even when, in the very last chapter of John's Gospel, the disciples are fishing, they see this person on the shore, but they don't know that it's Jesus. And it's only towards the end of the story that John says, it is the Lord. And Peter jumps into the sea famously. And then we have the what you could call the resurrection breakfast, fish on charcoal and bread. And all these questions through the gospel, who are you, Jesus, are in a strange way, gently but very firmly turned on their heads, because it's Jesus who asks the question to Peter 3 times, do you love me? And Peter says, you know that I love you. And Jesus says, feed my sheep. And then again, do you love me? And Peter says, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Tend my lambs. And then a third time Jesus asks, and Peter's quite frustrated by now, and he says, look, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. And Jesus again says to him to tend the sheep, feed the lambs. That's the clue to how we might see Jesus if we respond to his question in our hearts and minds, do you love me? By saying with all humility, yes, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. And in that way, I think we begin to see the risen Lord. And Pope Francis put it beautifully. Many years ago, when he was first Pope, he was asked a question, and he responded very enigmatically and beautifully, as was his case often. He said, you might not see the Lord, you might be frightened about death, and that's understandable. But then he said, the one who practices mercy does not fear death, because he looks death in the face. in the wounds of his brothers and sisters, and he overcomes it with the love of Jesus Christ.